I know it's going to be a really, really special event. And it's fantastic to be able to do this. We chose in our 175th year, we could do all sorts of events, but this one in particular is about trying to bring all of the Delph bands and family together. And hopefully we've achieved that to a certain degree today. What we're going to do is we're going to set off, and in fact we're going to go chronological order this first half. And we're going to set off with the most fantastic group of youngsters, the Delph Tooters. Now, I'm not supposed to have any favourites, but the Tooters are my favourites. I love them. They're so enthusiastic and absolutely full of fun, and you're going to love what they do. They're going to be joined with the training band, and then it'll be the youth band, and with their version of optimism and enthusiasm as they bounce onto the stage, and then that'll take us through to the grizzled veterans of the senior band, and we'll lead you back. Then there'll be a little bit of the interval, and then after that, what's going to happen is we're all going to come together, and that will be mighty, mighty sound. Just before I get them to go on, I have to do the safety announcement. If we need to evacuate, there's two exits. There's one there, the way you came in, and we have another emergency exit there. There'll be lighting along as well, and if it gets really bad, oxygen masks come from there. So, as I say, the idea today is we're just going to enjoy ourselves. It's a celebration. And so would you please welcome our very own Delph Tooters and Training Band. Here they go. This last ensemble of Tooters training from the gentlemen who did this most fantastic work. So total admiration from the people who work with youth bands, because it is so difficult. But what Matt has achieved and his team supporting has been absolutely fantastic for the Delph. So please welcome Mr. Matt Stimpson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Are you all alright? Yeah. We've been waiting for this for 175 years. So, training band are going to start, and they're amazing. Okay. What we need from you guys is, when they're finished playing, that round of applause that you just gave to be a lot louder. Okay. I'd like them to hear it in Delph. Okay. So, it's dead exciting. They're going to play for us Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. There we go. Tone for what we're going to do for the rest of the set. So we open there with Pulp's 1995 classic, Disco 2000. I went on to Wikipedia, and it's all about finding someone, but not being able to tell them that you love her. And eventually you might tell her later on, so that's fine. So, here we have. Our next piece was written in 1955. And it was made, well, it's actually written in 1953. It was made a classic in 1955 by the singer Julie London. It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2001. Most people might have never heard the Julie London version, but you will have heard the Michael Bublé version. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our soloist, Izzy, who's going to play for us Cry Me a River. That was absolutely fantastic. I think playing in front of a whole of people anyway is pretty tricky. To play in front of a whole of musicians as well, and mum and dad right in the front row too. Yeah, and that was amazing. So give a massive round of applause. Our next piece is really, really exciting, I think. It's a world premiere. So, Phil wrote a piece. He probably doesn't want me to tell you this, but he wrote a piece called Spania, based on his many holidays that he's now enjoying. I spoke to him yesterday about this and said he was like Judith Chalmers. He said Jackie wouldn't agree. So we're going to play this piece. It's got an amazing tune, and we're really, really lucky because our soloists have got an absolute horde of soloists. Our Tooters and training band are going to come and play this for us with youth band accompaniment. So this is Spania. So if you could welcome the Tooters and the training band to join us on stage. I could say thank you to Phil again for writing the piece, and Jess and Amy who prepared the training band and the Tooters as well for today. And to give the training band and Tooters another round of applause. So we're going to move on to another piece. This piece of music is a bit of a fiendish piece, and it's one we've been working on for a while, and there's some quite tricky bits in it, but it's absolutely brilliant. It was originally commissioned for the National Children's Band of Great Britain, which are basically like 8-year-old children who are like got diplomas. So it's like amazing. And so it's tricky, but also it's got quite a lot of modern styles within it. And so it's a really, really good piece of music. So this piece of music is called Wall of Sound by Paul Lovett Cooper, and I really, really hope that you enjoy it. brilliant piece of music, so I really hope you enjoyed it. So we've got one final piece for you. So no, we're going to get ready. So we are going to play for you a piece of music by the Killers that was written in 2004. Again, all about meeting somebody. So this one is called Somebody Told.
changeover now. Obviously, as a senior band, they're going to come on and finish this first half. But you know, 175 years is a very, very long time, and you know, it's brilliant to be part of this organisation, and we continue to exist in so many forms. At the beginning, when we got that, it's always, I find disappointing that there's no continued history. We have periods where people have actually kept notes and we know what's been happening, but there's been whole chunks where we don't really know what really went on. And I know at the very beginning when the band first formed, they were quite nomadic. They rehearsed in various places within Delph. but seem to get kicked out fairly regularly. I don't know their behaviour, but they moved around a fair bit. It wasn't until the mid-1950s when the band was actually built, when they knocked out those terraced houses and it was completed, the band had its own headquarters. The club that you know, obviously at the moment, the extension went on in the 70s, and it's really from that time, I think, that the band really started to progress. But throughout all of that time, I think competition has been very important. Obviously with Fridays, march contests, and these days our regional contests and national contests. I mentioned at a concert we did last week that I read a report of an early march contest that the band did, and the adjudicators' comments were a miserable effort from start to finish. And fortunately, they don't quite write comments like that today. But I think hopefully, the band has moved forward. And one of the things obviously we're very proud of, 1980. And I came to do one job. I came along to conduct the band at the National Championships in London. And we became the first band in the saddle to ever win a national championship. And that was an amazing part of the band's history. And something we're very proud of. Something I'm also equally very proud of is that in 2010, when we moved through the sections, we actually then won the championships again. And I was very good. The only band at that time in the saddle to win 2 national championships, and we consider a small village as well. What a great achievement that is. But what I was saying, I was really pleased with the majority of those players who played in the 1980 were also there in 2010. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. I have a couple of announcements while the band are just about there. Hopefully getting ready to come on now. You've noticed that they're all wearing these rather splendid, limited edition badges. The Delph 175 anniversary badge. These are very, very rare beasts. There's only about 500 of these. No, anyway. But we do have a few left. And, let's think in 25 years' time, when the band is celebrating their 200, you can turn up and say, look, I had the original badge, 175. So, those badges are available outside. Raffle tickets are available, and there's some fantastic prizes for the raffle. So please avail yourself of that if you can. You've probably also seen a lot of effort put together to get some fantastic photographs. And a small amount of memorabilia, we have loads, but trying to get it here. So in the interval, please feel free to have a look at all of the photographs and a little bit of the history of the band that's out on the table and on those boards. Hopefully the band are now ready. And so would you please welcome Delph Senior Band. purely entertaining and perhaps just a little snapshot of some of our programs. That was music by Frederick Joseph Ricketts, better known as Kenneth Alford. That was his pen name. And Alford was known as the British March King. He wrote some fantastic marches. That one was being called Army of the Nile. We're going to move to America, and a fantastic composer by the name of James Kerner. And James has written a lot of music for band, but primarily writes a lot of stuff for the concert band over in America. But he's also very keen in collecting folk music. And what he's done in this particular suite is taken some folk tunes from the range of the Appalachian Mountains. And I didn't realise just how far they spread. They're right the way down from Alabama, right the way across to the northeast, right? Way massive range of mountains. A little bit like the Pennines. It's like a bigger scale. But it's taken music from each of those areas. The first one is called Sour Mountain. The second one is Black is the colour of my true love's hair. And one I'm sure we all know is Camptown Races. This is James Kerner's Appalachian Mountain folk songs. Language is a funny thing, isn't it? I like languages. I wish I spoke more. I can probably order beer in about 5 or 6, but that's about it. But sometimes things sound better. You know, we talk about French, the language of the world. You know, it's like, you know, what the ladies swoon as soon as you hear some French by building up. It's actually nonsense. Italian, wonderful language, especially for singing. You go to opera, you know, people, you know, a big down on opera because we don't know what's going on. It doesn't really matter. We all know Ness and Dora, but you know, we don't really know what it's about. And yet, you know, all the great operatic composers, Puccini, absolutely wonderful writer, the biggest hit probably La Bohème. Lovely bit at the beginning when the two brothers touch hands and he said, "Change the Gelida Manina," which roughly translated is, "Your hands a bit colder." It even goes like, you know, to F1. I like the F1. You go to inlet, turn 7, Aqua Minerale, mineral water cooler. Fantastic, isn't it? You don't get quite the same ring. And all we've got now is a piece of Welsh music. Now I have to be very careful because I have the Welsh here, and I'm absolutely no way I'm going to attempt to speak it as we have a Welsh speaker, at least one I know on the view against. But this is one of the most famous and most sung melodies in the Welsh repertoire. It's called Sosban Fach. I thought I'd give you, it goes on from a lot of verses. It's all about a housewife, about her daily troubles. It sounds fantastic in Welsh. I'll give you the translation of the first couple of verses, okay? Alas, Mary Ann hurt her finger. The Davy, the townsman, is ill. The baby in the cot is crying, and the cat has been scratching the little bird. Boiling broth is putting out the fire, steaming coals are rolling on the floor. The cat has been scratching a little bit. But now, Mary Ann's hand is better. The Davy, the teamsman, is dead. The baby in the cot is laughing. The cat sleeps in peace beside the shed. Boiling broth is putting out the fire, steaming coals are rolling on the floor. The cat sleeps in peace beside the shed. Sosban Fach. It means the little saucepan. And those who have been to rugby will know that was some down at the Nestle. And when they moved around,
are we going home now?
Hung the little saucepans and kitchen utensils on the post because nearby was a tin plant where they used to make it. This is a great arrangement by Caravan of Sosban Fach. soloist in our spot, but since I've been here in the band, I think we've probably played a solo on every concert that we put together. And we thought we'd go back and resurrect one of the very first solos that I remember we did. It isn't the very first one we did, but it's one of the very first ones. And it's an old-fashioned air variant. The idea is that it became very fashionable beginning of the 19th century for players to show off. And they'd be going, people like the great soloists of the Sosban. They would go around very often, they'd write their own solos. And they'd take a well-known tune and write increasingly different variations on that. And this particular tune was written by, again, another American composer, Stephen Foster. And it's been put together as a combination. This particular arrangement is by William Rimmer. So would you please welcome to playing my old Kentucky hip hop. Keep on. So to our final piece before we have a little interval, avail yourself of the raffle tickets, the badges, the bar, and anything else you need. We're going to finish with a piece that was actually made famous by Duke Ellington, although it wasn't actually written by Duke Ellington. It was written by his trombone player, one Tizzle, and he wrote this piece and actually recorded it, and it's a nobody else in band, and he actually became self-sufficient in his concerts, and they first recorded this in 1936. Taking the role of one Tizzle, I don't know his name, is Dan Barber Wilson. So I hope you enjoy this. This is Caravan. it's great to see everyone together. And of course, Hail Smiling Morn, as you all know, is how we set up every Friday. And I get amazed every year when I stand at the front and I look back down just how long the procession is. And it's fantastic when I see all these little ones here at the back playing along to that. And that leads us into our next piece. Because I've been very lucky in my career that I've played with some fantastic players, both orchestral and brass bands. I've worked with some great conductors, and equally, I've been very lucky to be able to get to know certain composers. And one of those is a fantastic guy called Wilby. And Phil's written some of the most wonderful pieces for brass band, but he's also steeped in hymn tunes. His wife, Rebecca, was the first female piano, and what a wonderful family. And after Good Friday this year, we were doing a joint concert in Huddersfield. And in between the rehearsal and the concert, I was just sat down having a natter with Phil. And he was asking about the band and how we're doing. And I showed him a couple of pictures, and we had some great pictures, because we have the banner with the 175 banner with a lot of the Tooters stood behind. And he was really tickled by this. And I said, you know, we're trying to do a concert. And he said, I think I can sort it out. And the very next morning, I opened my emails, and there's an email from Phil, and it was entitled Toot Sweet. Very clever. And he sent me this arrangement of Onward Christian Soldiers. And it ties in with the idea of Good Friday, since the March and the hymn tunes and so on. But what makes this unique is that, having spoken to him, he was really taken by the Tooters. And so he composed in this, he said, marks especially for the Tooters today. He really wanted to be here, but unfortunately he's got his own concert this afternoon, also starting at 3 o'clock. But what we're going to do, we're going to send him a recording of this and some nice pictures as well. So we're going to feature absolutely everybody, and this is Philip Wilby's arrangement of Onward Christian Song. going to ask them to stand up, but they're fantastic. And so it's a very special present. And sincerely say that that's a world premiere. Wow. You heard it first. But I'm really, when we tried to put this concert together, we wanted it to be genuine, a celebration of, say, all of the bands. We had lots of events throughout the year. And very fortunate, the band throughout the years has produced some extremely fine players, as we've already heard today. But we've had lots of players who've come from this band who've moved on into famous bands like Black Dyke, Brighouse, Fairies, Brian Wood, and so on, and many other bands too. And it's something we're really proud of, and we want to keep on encouraging our youngsters to come through and feed through, to give them that experience so that they can go forward and onto other bands as well to spread that. But we do need all these youngsters to keep on feeding through to our CD now. It's a really, really important part of keeping bands, especially village bands, together. But we're going to move on, and I'm going to have a rest for a moment. Because how's Matt to take this next piece? It's a very lively piece, and we need a lively conductor for that, so I'll get into it.
So we can see how many stands are. I find history quite interesting, and social history in particular, and I think 170 years, the people that started the band, did they ever think, well, it'll carry on after me, or it'll stop, or what'll happen? And I find that quite interesting. And 175 years, obviously, there's a lot of things that's happened in history since then. So we've had, 2 world wars, we've had COVID, we've had all kinds of stuff. So for a band to keep on going throughout all that time, I think is remarkable. But also to think about other things like the failure of education to support music and stuff like that. That's maybe a little bit political, but that's kind of what happens, okay? So, and then you think about Delph, this village that you drive through and you see twinkling lights and you think, oh, that's amazing. And to think that they've got bands like this that have been going on for 175 years, I think is amazing. And whatever's happened, they've not been able to stop the music. So we're going to play You Can't Stop the Beat.
Thanks, Matt. And again, as Matt was saying, it's all these things that move on throughout the years. But I'd also like to acknowledge at this point, throughout my time, and the people here, some of the past members who unfortunately are no longer with us, and many of us, of course, left us far too soon, and that's just life, I'm afraid. But when we're a family like this, we do take it very personally when we do lose any of our members. So we're going to play a nice arrangement by a chap called Andy Cook, and this is the tune Manchester. this year we've broken tradition because always in the evening we play a traditional road march. But this year, the band decided they want to do something a little bit different because we had the band and we want to celebrate. And we were trying to think what we could do, and I got this piece together, and I never thought it to see the light of day again. But we need a bit of audience participation, because this is a great number by Cool and the Band, and it's called Celebration. You can clap, sing, well, anything you want to do. Get involved. So we've come to our final item of this fantastic afternoon, and obviously, you know, to put something together like this needs an awful lot of help from a lot of people. And I'd also like to say that, you know, whatever date you pick, there's always going to be something in the way. And I'm really delighted today that we've got some ex-players who've returned to come and help us out. There's an awful lot of people who wanted to be here but couldn't. But I would like to say we've got Chris and Paul there, obviously Jess and April, which is fantastic. There's also a couple of the audience there. Who else have we got? Anthony, who's come back as well. Joel, who's the native. And we've also got Rachel, one of my original players, came back a very long time ago. And I would like to say a very, very warm welcome to Dave Bamford. Stand up there for a second. You know, we talked about the band going through peaks and troughs, and yeah, every band is the same, but every band at times when, you know, we're perhaps down to 14, 15 players, and lots of times I only have one bass player, and that bass player is Dave. Who did a sterling job, absolute stalker, he's had over 60 years, and you know, in his banding career, and again, for him to still play is absolutely fantastic, and we know he's welcome anytime, and it's a delight to see you. Yeah, all those people who can't be here, I know send their best wishes, and all those outside as well. I'd like to thank all of you, because without you here today, this would have just been a very lonely rehearsal. So thank you for that. We've got lots and lots of helpers. The Densham Village all have been really, really generous in helping us with that. We've had so many volunteers from the band, as we said before, who've done so much work. You see all the decorations, all the memorabilia, all the photographs. Again, it's so well. Yeah, it is appreciated. I'd like to say a big thank you to Matt. And of course, I'd like to thank all my senior band players for all the time and effort they put in as well. So my we've had lots and lots of volunteers, and we certainly, as I say, genuinely appreciate your help. But there's been one person that's actually gone above and beyond, and has done so much work for this, and it has become, I think, something of a bit of an obsession. Because Jess has done an absolutely fantastic job in getting us all involved and doing so many things, and the organisation and the time and effort that she spent into it has been absolutely fantastic. And we have, I believe, just got a little something. Come on, Jess.
Goodwin, please. He had one job, 1980. Not been able to get rid of him since. Not the other bad job, so we'll carry on.
Yeah, it is one of those strange things, isn't it? I got a call. I was conducting a band down in Manchester. I was playing with a band in Manchester, and I got a call asking me to come and take a rehearsal. It was via someone I knew from the Brighouse band, and I said, "Okay, which band is it?" It said Delph. I've never heard of it. Where's that? Didn't have sat navs in those days. What are you doing? And I turned up, and I just took the rehearsal, and for me it was just that particular job. After that rehearsal, they said they would like me to take them to London, and we went, and of course, as history said, we went along and we won, which was absolutely fantastic. I was obviously then under a bit of pressure to stay, but I had got my other band, and eventually we decided that we'd actually come along and take the band full time, and along with Kathy, we moved up to this area, and we've been here ever since. And I think that's one of the important things, that families make up bands. We've had so many families, and still got so many families involved in the band. And it's great to see that generation coming through from our current players and to our next generation of players as well. So, yeah, I'm getting to like it. Till this time. But seriously, it's been a fantastic journey, and we're going to continue, I'm sure, doing a lot more. But as I said, a big thank you to everybody involved, all the people, parents, grandparents, so who are actually, giving your enthusiasm to your children and grandchildren, because that's what they need. We're going to finish with one of these anthems, stadium anthem things. It's been very, very popular. It set off in Europe years ago, but it's just got bigger and bigger. We've got a fantastic band version, and it's going to feature, see, all of our percussion is there. We were hoping to get them front, but health and safety dictates they're going to stay there. But they're going to be featured here. So I'm going to say thank you very much for doing. This is Highland